How Salt Bae went from one of the most popular and beloved memes on the planet to a guy banned by FIFA, banned from even being a spectator at the American Football League, and mocked on the internet by millions of people and even celebrities. And was this all due to a single action, or was he losing control from the start? Nusret, his real name, was born in 1983 in Trakai. He grew up in a very poor family with a father who worked in the mine, so he had no time to imagine major studies. At the age of 12, he quickly became an apprentice to be a butcher. But surprisingly, gourmet cuisine, all that, will touch him and actually please him. And as he grows up, he will travel a little to learn more and more about cooking, about the restaurant business. He will go from country to country, working on the counter, working as a cook or as a clerk, all for a little can draw on experience and know a little more about all that. And once he returns from his last 3-month trip to the United States, he will return to Turkey. He will contact 2 people who are among the richest people in Turkey and tell them that there he is. He has a restaurant idea and a way to make everything a hit. And this is how their steakhouse Nusret restaurant chain was born. And as he predicted, he's creating a buzz. The reason is that it's a restaurant that will serve huge cuts of meat, side dishes, and so on, for really next to nothing. At that point, we have around $60 for 3 people. We are talking about 3 starters, 3 main courses, 3 desserts, 3 soft drinks, 3 coffees. I can assure you that with quantity of food served, we are really in a given restaurant there. But even with the growing success of his steakhouse Salt Bae, what interests him is being a multi-millionaire. In fact, it's very, very rich and very powerful. And that's not how it's going to become. So he decided to open a new address, his steakhouse, but not in Turkey, not in the United States, in Dubai. We're talking about a place where people are able to spend $100,000 on a pair of pumps. So this is literally the exact place where Salt Bae will be able to get rich. And then everything will change. The presentation, the decoration, and above all the prices, in fact. Finally, not everything will change since the food will remain the same quality, same quantity, but just much more expensive. At that time when he opened his restaurant in Dubai, $60 was not even enough to pay for 3 Cokes. And I'm not exaggerating, I'm talking about real prices. But you can't have a chain of restaurants and decide that some restaurants are overpriced and others aren't. So it's a continuation of the same restaurant chain. So all these restaurants, all these steakhouses are all going to explode in price. People will obviously start to complain. Normal people who have a fairly normal budget, they are not actually capable of going to a restaurant and simply dropping $500 or $600 for just a starter, a main course, and dessert. But he doesn't care since he's exploding on social networks. He may have alienated some of the customers, but there are still all the influencers, all the celebrities, or all the people who are simply a little too materialistic, who want to have their Instagram story with Salt Bae, who will cut the piece of meat as he does so well, on video before placing salt along his sweaty arm, which will gently flow down his forearm to end up on the plate. You should know that at this moment this video will allow him to become very, very rich in a very short time. And when I'm very rich, it's a fortune of almost $100 million all the same. At this point he no longer has any limits. He will extend his chain of restaurants almost everywhere on the planet, opening in the United States right and left, always inflating prices even more. And we're really in the same situation. We're in the same situation. We often tend to think that what is expensive in these restaurants is the famous cuts of beef with a golden coating, real gold leaf that we see cut for celebrities. But in fact, everything is out of the question. Prices in these restaurants. We have almost €60 for a Champagne cane, a beer, €45 for a glass of water, €50 for a small portion of fry, and not golden fries, really just a portion of fries with salt on them. It's €50. But reality until now, there is nothing that can justify the fact that people care a lot about him. The guy started from nothing. He has every right to surf on the idiocy of people who decide to pay astronomical sums, either because they are rich, or because they wanted to save 6 months and then go film their Instagram videos in his restaurant. There's no problem actually. We're talking about a guy who was a butcher, then a cook, then a businessman. It's a success story. He succeeded, except when we discover that the guy is actually a real scammer. For example, he had a tendency and habit to collect all the powers from his servers and keep them for himself in fact, or sometimes at the end, He gives them a ticket without ever telling them how much in total the restaurant is for drinking in the evening. And if there were employees who dared to defy him without complaint, in fact, they simply got fired. We are talking about restaurants where a bill can easily reach 5 or 8,000 euros. So when we talk about tipping, we're talking about a real tip. We're not talking about a 5-ball bill like that lying around and disappearing. Besides, he will be sentenced for that. He's going to have a sentence of more than $200,000, which is more or less the amount of tip that he actually kept for himself in a restaurant. He really abused it. He also goes for other restaurants that have failed and had to pay fines because he refused to pay his cooks overtime. There was also another problem in these restaurants, which was having a wine list without prices, knowing that it can be done in very chic restaurants. Either it is simply the man who will have the price on the menu, the food, and the wines. Sometimes, really, there's just no point in scoring since you know where you're going. You are part of a certain category of people, and you know very well that here is the black card. Anyway, it is available. You are going to give up. That's how in England we have a group of 4 people who earn a pretty good living anyway, who are used to going to great restaurants, and who decide to go to one of Salt Bay's restaurants. They will take little things to nibble here and there, and especially 2 bottles of wine. Petra's Vintage 2023. So we are dealing with people who are used to ordering large bottles of wine in restaurants. They know that on average a bottle of wine like that in restaurants sells for $5,000 to $6,000. So what will they pay? Maybe 12 grand max. But that was without counting the vast joke of the multiplication of prices of Salt Bay restaurants, in fact. Because when they received the bill, they had to pay £45,000. Salt Bay. No, the most epic, in fact, is real sauce this guy is currently in. And it's funny because he's actually falling the same way he appeared. It's because of social media. Have you ever seen such an embarrassing video? We are talking about Argentina's World Cup victory, and Salt Bay, still inhabited by his almost mental illness of being the main character in everyone's life, feels an uncontrollable need to be the winner of this World Cup himself. The guy is neither a football player nor Argentinian, but on the other hand he will affect the World Cup more than the players of the team. In fact, you should already know that at this time it is forbidden to be on the lawn, but it is also forbidden in FIFA to touch the World Cup. There's a bit of trouble to be done. There are only the winners and a very small handful of people who are allowed to touch this World Cup. But not Salt Bay actually. This is the ultimate embarrassment. Everyone will start making fun of him on the internet. He himself, to defend himself, will show a video on his social networks where he explains that he has already met Messi in one of his restaurants, who seems to have already spoken together so they would be friends or something. But not at all actually. They're not friends and no one believes it. He's just a football player who came to eat at his restaurant, and Salt Bay as usually saw a celebrity. He came to take selfies. In addition to this story, which is very recent, the reviews left by customers on these restaurants on the internet are in fact more and more honest. We often get a very low rating from people who explain that it's really normal food, in fact, just 18 times more expensive. He plans to launch new fast food restaurants in the United States where there will be burgers for more than $150, portions of fries for $100, and so on. So will it finally come to fruition or not until the end, and will he open all the restaurant chains that he planned to do? We have no idea, since it's quite complicated for these restaurants to fill up at the moment. And that's actually how we're going to end the incomprehensible hype of a butcher who went from a pinch of salt on his forearm to a businessman holding the Football World Cup. And Salt Bay, still inhabited by his almost mental illness of being the main character in everyone's life, feels an uncontrollable need to be the winner of this World Cup himself. The guy is neither a football player nor Argentinian, but on the other hand he will affect the World Cup more than the players of the team. In fact, you should already know that at this time it is forbidden to be on the lawn, but it is also forbidden in FIFA to touch the World Cup. There's a bit of trouble to be done. There are only the winners and a very small handful of people who are allowed to touch this World Cup. Even before some of the players on the team that won those cups were able to touch it. Goldlees won't do anything. 3 years after its opening, Salt Bay's restaurant in New York is closing its doors for good. The brand, specializing in burgers, was considered the worst restaurant in New York by the city's culinary critics. Salt Bay opened this restaurant in February 2020 in a city where the burger serves as religion. The brand offered a free vegetarian ladies burger reserved for women, but also a milkshake covered in gold leaf for $99 and a gold burger for $100. The Guardian quotes food critic Robert Sitzema as describing the atmosphere at Salt Bay Burger as warm as an airplane hangar. Leave a comment. leave a like, subscribe. See you soon. Don't forget to watch my other videos.